All right, this morning, had an introduction by Dr. Everts, followed up by a welcome from Dr. Ludwig, emceed by Dr. Bergman. We heard Dr. Beam and Dr. McSween, but the smartest people in the room, smartest people at the plant, smartest people anywhere, as Steve told us, is our frontline workers. It's a principle that I hold dearly, and one that we'd like to share with you now. Terry's career is foundational in behavior-based safety, which involves not only managers, but frontline workers doing observations of each other. And of course, not observation without a conversation, and then a system behind it to create the opportunity for success, which means data collection, trending, analyzing, and not only having one-on-one conversations at the point of risk, but also giving us the data and the analysis to look at some of these design issues, environmental issues that can really make a sustainable difference. So, we can't sit up here and talk about it unless we bring the doers every year, right? We bring the doers every year. In fact, we have a bunch of doers here in the room with us. We got the SOS. That was your cue. Sorry. We got the TAC. Let's see what else we got. We got Fuel. We got Mesa. And today we have the Circle of Safety. It's super gratifying to see Eric Nicholas here from Fuel at the Marathon plant in Robinson, Illinois, the Fuel program. I've known Eric for many years, and he came to the very first Safety Summit many years ago and has been to a lot since. He'll be doing a breakout during the first breakout session. I only say that, we'll announce them all, but those of you in these other groups, SOS, TAC, and the like, will certainly want to spend some time with the folks who have grounded down, have really did the work of facilitating these teams and working with managers and leaders to create these sustainable change. So today we got with us all the way from beautiful Detroit, Michigan. Yeah, Sean Moore, engineer working with tech services in the Marathon refinery there in Detroit. Been out there for a dozen years or so?
Yes.
About a dozen years?
It'll be 12 years in February.
Past facilitator of the Circle of Safety that's celebrated their 25th anniversary last year, is that right?
The 25th, I celebrate. We did the 20th, and then we're coming up on
25, yeah.
Coming up on 25. And we got Don Sparks, who's the current facilitator of the team. Don's is an operator at Marathon, which means he's moving all the knobs, he's doing all the permitting, making sure the product gets through, but definitely sitting there on the front line in the blast shelters and the like. Don's been with Marathon for 8 years. Check this out, folks. Check this. Listen here. He joined COS back in March, and within a month, they made him the leader. So Don's going, you know what? You're going to make me the leader. Our next 25 years, we're going to stir it up. We're going to change it up. Terry, Julie, who you'll hear from tomorrow, myself, and many colleagues are volunteers, trustees in a not-for-profit called the Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies. Our mission is to apply behavioral science in all its forms to reduce human suffering. And that could be applied to human services and autism. It can be applied to policing and schools. And obviously, in this forum, we're applying it to industrial applications where humans are getting involved in hazardous environments. And so, as a part of this mission in our commission, we accredit the best in practice behavioral safety programs in the entire world. We got some, just a little short of 30 of them across the world, Italy, the UK, Canada, here in the United States. Marathon Petroleum, the MESA program, the Fuels program, COS program, have all been accredited. And many times as we reaccredit every 3 years, they continue to raise their standard. part of accreditation is to, acknowledge great performance. But from our standpoint, as educated as we are, Terry, it's our chance to learn. Our chance to learn, because you can know the science and you can know kind of the practice as you'd write it up in a book or learn it from consultants. It really is where when the rubber hits the road, that you have people that need to translate all this into the real work, right? The real getting people involved, the real teaming with management, the real collection of data and the like. So, when we go every 3 years, we give some recommendations. Because, you can tell us what's great about you, but then we want to learn how to innovate. With great power comes great responsibility. And so I guess I'm gratified that Don's here telling us, you know what, we're going to stir it up. So we're going to hear about the last 25 years, and hopefully Don, Sean will tell us about the next 25. So can we hear for him? Yeah. Indeed. Yeah.
Like Tim said, I'm not a doctor. Watch a lot of Doctor Who, not a doctor. And I also know that I'm the guy standing between you and lunch. So we're going to try to get through this. So yeah, we're going to look at the history of our program. It's what we call it Circle of Safety. It's our behavior-based safety program at the refinery. We've already went over the safety and room etiquette. You guys know where the exits are. And everybody's adults here, so take personal breaks as you need. I want to address this. This is not my first interaction with App State. That was my first interaction with App State. Right there. Greatest college football upset in history. See that guy about to jump? That's me. I was at that game. You hurt me. You hurt me, App State. You hurt me deep. But congratulations. Oh, no, I don't want anything to do with that picture. Picture I got it. Yeah. Anyway, so I am Don Sparks. I'm the current Circle of Safety Facilitator. I've been with Marathon since 2014. I have an operations background. I'm a field operator and a process control operator. I've worked the board, the field. I've worked a little bit of everything. I've worked the alkies, sulfur, 2 hydro treaters. I'm also a lieutenant on our fire department. Fun facts about me: I've been married with 3 beautiful children and a wife for 14 years. I'm also a municipal firefighter for the city of Rockwood. And I've played guitar for some incredibly unsuccessful bands. Promise you've never heard of us. That man right there.
So thanks for having us here. My name is Sean Moore. I want to thank Tim for the extra, the engineering background, but technically I work in product control. I just
not an engineer.
I've been at Marathon for 11 years. Again, I'm in the tank farm. I was the BBS facilitator for 4 years. I have a daughter. She'll be 28 next month. She's an attorney. I'm very proud of her. I do collectibles, so like action figures, comic books. I had an opportunity to go to some antique malls around the city here, and I love to cook and video games. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I also got to go antiquing with him yesterday. That was so much fun. me and Grandpa Sean. All right, so why did we get involved? I'll let Sean go first. He's been around a little bit longer. Go ahead.
All right, so how I got involved, I had a foreman, and he said, this would be something good for you. Because at the time, we were having a lot of injuries at the refinery. And I said, what do you mean it'll be good for me? He said, well, you like to talk to people? I think it'll be good. So I was like, I get 8 hours of overtime for coming in. I said, okay, so I do it. So I did it. And about 3 months passed, and one of my buddies was like, hey, you haven't done an observation since you got trained. So he took me out, coached me, and I've been doing it ever since. I had the opportunity to get on the committee. He said, I'm gonna make you the facilitator, and I had the opportunity to be the facilitator for 4 years, and I had the opportunity to assist Don here, who's a great guy as well. That's how I got involved.
All right, so I got involved, like Tim said, it was a little unusual circumstance. The facilitator before me took a salary job. The backbone of our program is it's ran by the hourly personnel. And we also had a couple of committee members quit. They stepped away from the committee. So when Chris, the previous facilitator, walked away, someone needed to step into the role. Chris and I are good friends. He knows, with being on the fire department, and I get around the refinery a lot. I talk to a lot of people. I don't really have a problem talking to people. He said, hey, this might be a a good job for you. I'm also one of the more outspoken operators as far as being outspoken to the safety department. So I kind of jumped in bed with them. So that was my involvement. Another reason getting involved is, so we actually just went through a plant turnaround, like literally just put the oil back in before we flew down here. So these are some of the numbers that our process went through. So we had 1,399 observations. That was in 3 weeks. And that was only with 4 dedicated observers. You know, we have everybody around the plant doing observations here and there, but we had 4 dedicated people out there, 12 hours, 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. So, and in that, we saw 498 what we call at-risk behaviors. 45 of those were considered high for the severity of potential injury. So we saw some pretty significant stuff out there, and our observers were able to mitigate that. So they were such high severity that it wasn't just an observation at that point. They were like, hold on, stop. Let's take a step back and address this. So that's a pretty big deal. Coming from, Sean and I are the guys, we're in the field. We're the guys doing the work. So that right there is a big reason why I got involved, because, that shows that our process works. That's 45 pretty potential incidents that you could have been reading about in the next reports. So we're going to look at the past. The Circle of Safety, we've been the Detroit behavior-based safety process for over 20 years. The process was actually formed after a labor strike, and the management team wanted the hourly workforce, they wanted buy-in to reduce the site injuries. So, the process was born under like labor supervision contention. So we've adapted it through multiple planned expansions, and there's years of history and data to reflect the struggle, the growth, and the effects of the process on the plant. So we're just going to look at some of the highlights real quick. So in 1998, to improve a steady injury trend, the behavior-based safety is presented to the Detroit refinery. It was formed under the guidance of BST, which I believe now is bought by DECRA. DECRA is who we go to for a lot of our consultation, and the Circle of Safety process was created. So this is our mission statement. The COS is dedicated to the development and promotion of an ongoing proactive BBS process which minimizes the risk of injury of all personnel at the Detroit refinery. Our mission is to reduce at-risk behaviors and remove barriers to safe work, thus improving our safety performance, benefiting and improving service to our customers, employees, and shareholders. So in 1999, the COS was actually formed. The steering committee and observers are trained, and the observations began. In 2000, the committee gains a little bit of structure and goals. A full-time facilitator position is approved. Dedicated observers are used for the first time during a plant turnaround, it's a plant shutdown. And the COS is completing approximately 50 observations a month. In 2001, the refinery management team goes through some changes and adds challenges to the COS and limits the process growth. They wanted us to go from no name, no blame to name and blame. And that's not exactly what we were about. So by June, only 9 observers are active. A new division manager is appointed and pushes the process forward and kind of gets us back on track. And by the end of 2001, we were averaging about 120 observations a month. In 2002, we lost about a year's worth of data, which kind of stalled the process once again. So we learned real quick that we probably should back up and do a little bit better job of data storage. In 2003, dedicated observers deployed, working dedicated shifts during a fall turnaround. At the year end, 34 observers made over 1,300 observations. So that was kind of like the first turnaround where we actually said, hey, this is the only job you're going to do. You're not going to do, your operations, your maintenance job, and do the observations. 12 hours, 12-hour shift. 2004, the COS committee holds site leadership training for over 70 salary or non-union employees, and the intent was to educate, train, and involve supervision. During that time, though, we had another union and supervision labor dispute. So the union leadership and the facilitator at that time said all voluntary work stops. And that actually kind of stalled the process out a little more. And then we tried it again in 2008. So now the way our system is set up, we have union, hourly. We also have salary people doing observations. We also have salary people on our committee, but the process will always be ran by an hourly guy. So here's a little bit of this graph shows our OSHA recordable rate. You can see, where's the little red clicky thingy? Right here. So there's our injury rate going up. We start doing observations, and then that trend pretty much continues to go down and stay down. You have little spikes here, and this is usually around turnaround times or major construction projects. As the manpower goes up, the work goes up, the injuries go up. But for the most part, we kept a pretty much downward trend. So that was our past. Looking at kind of where we're at today. So the BBS process has had multiple milestones during its history and growth. This is in large part due to the hard work and dedication of all the COS observers and committee members throughout the years. Focusing on management commitment, employee communication, and engagement has allowed us to grow the Circle of Safety into a world-class behavior-based safety process. So this is the industry standard for the ORIR, the injury rate, and here we are. So once again, we introduced BBS, and we basically stay below the industry standard pretty much constantly. Like I said, you get little spikes here and there. The current data sheets used by the observers have been developed and optimized by analyzing past injuries and at-risk behaviors. Sean, you want to go ahead and talk about this one?
Yeah, so this is an old data sheet, and to me, the most important part of an observation is the feedback portion. So if you look here, you say, while you were welding, then we say, what was at risk? You had your welding shield up, or you didn't have on gloves. So we asked them, why was that done at risk? And it's like almost asking the kid why they didn't take the garbage out. It was, I forgot. It was always, I forgot. So we needed to get away from that. And going to the next slide for the new sheet. Conferences like this, when you have breakout sections, you go to these to take back information. And we were at a breakout session, and my supervisor at the time had went to a breakout session, and she loved the speaker. And we had her come down to our plant. She met with our entire committee, and we took her out in the field. She watched us do observations, and she came back and she put this together for us. So we changed the sheet for safe, and the red was for at-risk behaviors of what we saw. But look how the conversation is read now. It's like, while you were, I noticed, and you stop and ask the question, you put it in there. So what's the worst that can happen if you're welding and your face shield is up? So they answer that. So we got away from the I forgot or I don't know and things like that. So you make it more personable, and I think that's what the direction we wanted to go in. You make it more personable, because if you say I forgot, and then that's the end. That's the end of the conversation, because people are working. You don't want to take up too much of their time. And again, this is one of the benefits that we had. And Don and Chris had added some new things in there for the injury potential cause. Yeah. We started also focusing a little more on the analysis of it. So the severity of potential injury being like, it's kind of what I talked about earlier. Like in this incident, what was the likely injury from it? You know, how severe was this injury going to be? You know, was it just, a smack on the hand, or was this falling from 30 feet? You know, so, and that goes back to what I said we saw in turnaround. I mean, we saw a lot of guys working without gloves, which, yes, I mean, that could lead to a recordable injury. We also saw guys walking structural steel not being tied off, and that's a little more of a severe injury potential for us. So that is kind of stuff. Kind of starts getting into the SIF territory. So that's stuff that we started focusing on. And another one of our behaviors too was line of fire. It was just line of fire. But as you know, line of fire can consist of many things. Struck by or against, release of stored energy, drop tools. So a lot of religion went in that to pinpoint exactly what was the line of fire. Yeah. We also tried to get away from just saying, hey, wear a hard hat. You know, you're not wearing your hard hat, wear a hard hat. And we started focusing more on why. You know, like telling the employees, you need, this is for you. You need to protect your head, your eyes, your hands, your feet, you know. Yeah, getting away from, because if doing the feedback and the observation, again, you're taking away people's work time. So you don't want to be there all day. So as opposed to focusing on the hard hat, you focus on what the actual PPE was protecting, whether it's your eyes, your hands, your feet, your hands, and things of that nature. So.
This is another big backbone of our process. So this is the management commitment letter. So as a facilitator, every year I go around to our site leadership team, and these are the big dogs. I mean, that's the plant manager, that's the HES manager, the health and safety manager. And I have this conversation with them. I say, do I have your support? Will you support our process? And they sign that letter, and I post it in my office. I let the whole plant see it. And one of the biggest parts of it, it's right here. It says, the Detroit leadership team and I strongly believe that no data or observation will be used for any form of discipline. And as far as I know, in our process history, we've seen some stuff, and we've seen a lot of crazy things out there, and there hasn't been one person disciplined.
Yeah. So if on that data sheet, there's no name, there's no company name, it's just a number on there. And it's true to that, and that's why we had great buy-in for our process. One thing I will have to say is the onboarding is awesome. Whether you're a contractor, a new employee, COS, we talk to everybody, we touch everybody. So it's not one of those things where you just see somebody with a pad and you're working like, well, who's this guy, or who's this lady, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I remember one manager at one time said, I don't think you should ask permission to do observation, because that's what we do. We acknowledge that we're there, we're present, and we're going to ask your permission. And you can say no. I've been told no.
I've been told no a lot.
Yeah, it's a voluntary process.
I've been told no a lot. I've been told no by guys like me. No, get out of here. I got work to do.
Yeah, Don was that guy back in the day.
I was.
But yeah, so he said, I don't think you should ask. I think you should just go out and do observations. So I said, I said, okay, what if you and your family were at a park and a guy walks up to you with his camera phone taking pictures? How would that make you feel? And he thought about it. He said, that made me feel uncomfortable. I said, but if I approach you and say, hey, I'm from Time Magazine, we're here doing a study on families, you mind if I take a picture? He said, you're absolutely right. He said, I'm sorry. I'd never bring that up ever again. But that letter right there, when we do conferences, we take that, we get that blew up on a big poster board, and we actually print out small copies to hand to other companies so they can take that back and say, hey, this company has management support. Mm-hmm. Great management support.
All right, so talking a little bit about communication with our workforce. Through newsletters and bulletins, we can reach out to employees and show them what the COS process is doing to improve site safety. So this is called The Observer. It's our quarterly newsletter. We put basically all things BBS in it. Some of the major things we're looking at, we like to do this Observer Spotlight. So it's not just the guys on the committee and like me and Sean, it's any of the observers in the plant. We'll ask them if they want to do a little bio on them. Like I said, it comes out every quarter. It's pretty fun. This is our mid-month. So we do the data collection for every month, and then at about the middle of the next month, I'll put out kind of what we were looking at. So we format it in a way that it can be hung in public, high traffic areas like bathrooms. So they've been calling it the porcelain press and toilet times and all kinds of other stuff. But my big thing is getting the communication out there. Like, how can I get these guys to literally sit down and read the information? Well, when you're sitting down and all you're looking at is the back of a door, I got you right there. So during the observation process, we identify at-risk behaviors. At times, these behaviors occur during a work condition that we consider barriers. So when we see stuff, we'll try to put it out there. So like this instance right here, these guys are doing a job. Or there's a piece of angle iron and they're stepping over it constantly. So in this particular observation, we addressed it. We said, hey, is there anything we can do? I mean, it's got sharp edges. Someone's going to get cut, especially the amount that they're stepping over it. So we just had them build a simple wood box around it. And that's problem solved right there.
So one of the things that came about before I became an actual committee member or involved with our process, I work in the tank farm, so we load asphalt cars and unload ethanol cars. So the way the tracks are set up, it's just these big chunks of rocks in their angle. And one of the facilitators at the time was doing an observation, and he saw that at risk, because we load 6 cars on day, 6 cars on night, so it's always traffic. And he said, someone's potentially going to get hurt. probably about 2 weeks later, they actually paved that. They put flat asphalt along the sides of all the rails for us. So that's one of the other benefits that got my buy-in to be interested in this process as well. So.
Studies show people remember 80% of what they see. So when we're talking about some of the critical behavior inventories, we like to provide as much visual examples as possible. So yeah, I can go around the plant and say, hey, watch where you're walking, eyes on path, eyes on task. But it's a lot easier to just put it out there and show them. So, we got a guy here, he's not looking where he's going, not holding on a handrail, about to walk over this hose. That's actually pretty common. That's pretty real life refinery life right there. So, it's real easy to show them, hey, look, you do a little housekeeping, 3 points of contact, watch where you're going. To keep the employees engaged and participation up, we like to do fun and creative contests and giveaways. Friendly competitions amongst the different refinery complexes are formed. And campaigns and giveaways usually tend to focus on pop culture stuff at the time, sports and activities. So we did this for the football season kickoff. I'm going to go over that real quick because you don't have the Big Ten's permission. Got a lot of wrestling geeks in the refinery, so we came up with this one. We have the COS championship belt, so each quarter whoever has the most observation activity wins the belt. Currently, it is in Complex 2, where it will stay.
When I became back, that idea came from Garyville, our sister plant down
We
in
did steal that, yeah.
That. And I love the idea. And I was still, so when I got back, I told him, I said, that belt's going to stay in 5 for a while now. And when I got back, it stayed in 5 for a little bit. Yeah. Now, you should be doing some more data digging because it should be back in 5.
It's good to be the king. This is the most recent one. Called it the Summer COS. These are heat wave sunglasses. It's a West Coast company, a little mom and pop shop, but they're definitely not on our PPE order. They come in pretty different wild styles and basically kind of like knockoff pit vipers. But the guys love them. Everybody in the plant loves them. So we did the contest. Anytime you ask to be observed, you do an observation, you get a ticket entered, and we would raffle them off, a couple here and there throughout the week. This time of year, October's kicking off hunting season for Michigan. We got a lot of hunters in the refinery. This is another big one. A lot of this is our corporate gear. We'll get it and use it to raffle off to guys that do observations. We also have the best looking hard hat stickers around. And this is like what we do, like Sean, Chris, myself, we try to keep it Detroit centric as much as possible. These are very popular, not just for our guys, but for traveling contractors. These guys love to put where they've been on their lunch boxes, hard hats. So, we use stuff, we got Motown, that old English D will be pretty much in everything we could find. We got the mitten up there. So now we're gonna look at the future. The backbone of quality BBS process is the conversations you have with people in the field. We've heard that multiple times today. Through those interactions, you recognize, troubleshoot, and ultimately mitigate risk. But with COVID-19, the restrictions on the plant were pretty heavy, and it did absolutely stall our process. And we are going through the recovery of that stall today. So I brought this graphic back up right there, COVID-19. Everything went down. Now, it wasn't just, obviously the injury rate went down because there's nobody in the plant. We've been bare bones up until very recently. But things are starting to pick back up. But there's also been other factors at play involving our COS participation. So you get plant morale swings, a little bit more than normal due to the global pandemic. The oil industry has been pretty volatile, which leads to budgetary challenges. So the fun giveaways and contests that I just went over that are kind of like the backbone of how we get things out to everybody, they were done. They were gone. And travel, everything stopped. So that kind of led to our program stagnation. So what are we going to do to fix it? With everything kind of being ramped back up, we can get back out there as we are today and promote our process. It's given us a good opportunity to look at our process and evaluate some improvement areas. One of the biggest areas we have for improvement, I think, is our data collection. We've started using adaptive software, and that software is pretty cool. We can track our observations, we can track our trends, our at-risks, our safes. We can even cross-reference data with the other refineries that use it. So this is an example of our one of our dashboards. So this is the one that I present to the plant monthly to our contractor safety leadership. And basically, and it's kind of tough to see here, but I focus on the top 3 at-risks and the top 3 safes. So this is areas of improvement, and this is what everybody's doing well. And you can customize this any way you want it. This is another way, we try not to stress contact rate too much anymore, but I mean, it still kind of gives you a good backbone of how well your process is doing. We're refinery operators. We like trends. Trends are easy for me to see. In the refinery, you kind of want straight lines, but you could see spikes in activity, spikes in observations. It's definitely an indicator of what's working and then where problems are occurring. So with the observation process slowing down, we need easy ways to get information out there. And so we started using QR technology and Survey Gizmo. So this allows the observers to enter observations with electronic devices. And if you guys feel free to get your phones out and take a look at it if you want. So with this QR code, it accesses the Circle of Safety Hub. So we have our quarterly newsletter on there, our mid-month bulletin on there. You can ask to be observed. You can enter observations. Anything COS, this is kind of the one-stop shop.
Did you all remember the number of observations we had during turnarounds, we won't have the most observations because we won't have dedicated observers on days and nights. And they didn't have that technology when I was a facilitator during the 2018 shutdown. So I was in there with a stack of pieces of paper, hand entering everything.
Yep. So, and actually, I still am doing that. There's not many people, and we'll get to that. There's not a ton of us on site that have access to the adaptive software just yet. So the Survey Gizmo is a very convenient way for observers to get the observations into me by use of the QR code. I mean, we've got stickers they put on their hard hats, lanyards, whatever. But it still is something, so it's convenient for them, but it still gets emailed to me, and I still have to sit there and henpeck all the information into adaptive. So we are one refinery, but anybody that's been in a refinery and works in the refineries know that they are very kind of segregated areas. We've got complexes 1 through 6. We've got the lab, the warehouse, the maintenance shop, the admin building. So even with modern communication and email, it still can be a struggle to get information out there. So we're always kind of brainstorming new creative ways to get our stuff out there. So we kind of came up with this idea. It's pretty simple. It's called the observation station. It's just a big weatherproof board. It's formatted to put our mid-month on there, our quarterly newsletter on there. We've got the QR code on there. And we could put them on, sandwich boards, stick them in all the break areas for all the contractors. It has access to our QR code. So while evaluating our process, the committee came up with the realization that after 20 plus years, COS could kind of use an overhaul and a little bit of a facelift. 20 years is a long time, but when you're kind of you have ebbs and flows of stagnation, and then a global pandemic basically shuts you down. You kind of have to take a step back and look and figure out how you're going to fix it. So we're currently in the process of developing the future of Marathon's BBS process. We're going to call it Detroit Gears. So what is Gears? So COS, Circle of Safety, it kind of flows, right? This one doesn't flow so much. It doesn't just flow off the tongue. But it is a reflection of our process. It's gathering data, engagement, action, results, and safety. Like I said, it does reflect our process. The logo is a little more Motor City pride. We're very, very proud people from Detroit, and it's a little bit easier to brand. We've noticed in the past that the Circle of Safety logo tends to get a little bit busy when you try to embroider it on shirts and hats and stuff. So along with the new logo, we plan on making further improvements. We want to incorporate more exposure-based safety, which is some of the newer stuff that we've been learning, into our behavior-based safety process. With Marathon recently acquiring company-wide licensing, thanks to Robinson, we can get all of our guys, our men and women, adaptive software trained. It's no longer licensed per person, it's just blanket. We also want to work with Decker to optimize the adaptive mobile software. So we are allowed to carry our devices out in the plant with intrinsically safe protection. And there is an app that we can do to where each observer can enter the observation. I don't have to sit at a desk all day and enter in 100 pieces of paper. We also want to upskill our observers by bringing BBS and EBS experts on site for training. So if there's any issue with our management team about sending Sean and I halfway across the country, well, we'll bring them here. We also want to have a rotation of dedicated observers for maintenance heavy time. So we do, these things are planned out. You can look ahead and say, hey, we got all this work coming down the line. Give us some guys from ops, give us some guys from maintenance that don't have a ton going on, and let us put them out there. Let us have some dedicated people to go out there and observe the jobs.
I think that's one of the benefits too. Like our maintenance department, I don't know what rigging looks like. So we had maintenance people going out there, and you had contractors using all kind of rigging that was sprayed, should have been taken out of service. They caught all that. That prevented something from dropping or falling and so on. So
Yep.
It's a benefit to try to take what you can, get a good diverse team out there looking for different things.
And we also want to increase networking with local industries. We're the only refinery in Michigan, but we do have BASF there. We have Dow Chemical. They have their own BBS processes, and we were actually working with BASF right before the pandemic, and then since I've taken over the position, their facilitator he's left the company, and they're training a new guy up, but we're supposed to be getting in contact with them pretty soon. They're actually right down the road from us. So the employees of Marathon at the Detroit refinery, they're very dedicated and resilient, and they're very much a reflection of the city. Detroit, it's a tough city with tough people. We've weathered labor disputes, economic downturns, and global pandemics. We're going to learn, we're going to adapt, and we're going to grow our process to keep it current. We're going to continue to dedicate ourselves to contributing to the safe operation of the refinery, to protect the people and the process every day. And that's all we got. Any questions? Any questions? Field them to Sean.
All right, thank you both. Yes, what questions do you all have for these two extraordinarily knowledgeable gentlemen? All right, just so everybody hears that.
This many.
How many observers do you have compared to your employee ratio?
Actually, that's not true. You have one. So, we don't have dedicated observers. We don't have a guy that their job is to go out there every day and just do observations. That's me.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Sean.
No,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I've cut you off.
I did say I'd field them all to you. Go ahead.
No, it's a voluntary process, and I think one of the good things I can say is we don't reward people for everything, but we do show recognition for doing observations. It's one of those things. Dedicated observers come along when there's an outage or a special shutdown or things of that nature, or if it's a focus that management wants to do, and that's one of the other things too. So we meet with our leadership team. We used to meet with them every month at lunchtime for an hour. They come down, we show them what we have planned, and they come in with their ideas, and we communicate that back to everyone else throughout the refinery. And communication is real big to me, because you can have a great plan, but if you're not sharing and communicating that, it just goes to the wayside.
Great. Other questions? Yes, right here.
One of the other things that stood out to me is the way you kind of changed the way you were talking to your employees, the way you were engaging with questions that you were asking.
Yes.
So when you changed that, how big of an impact did that have on your employees speaking with you?
It went well.
Okay, just really quick. So the Zoom land folks also. So the question is changing the way that you talk to the employees. What kind of impact did you all see? That's kind of the
that
summary of
feedback.
it.
So again, there's something that old sheet was 20 years, so this is new. We did trainings. We held trainings for all our observers, and for new observers, that's what we implemented, that new feedback sheet. So it went well.
And the CBI is the behavior inventory that kind of leads into that questioning that technically a healthy BBS process, you're supposed to at least evaluate them annually. So we don't exactly always change them annually, but we do sit down and look at it and say, what do we see in this that we can make better or take out or change? So, I mean, that does kind of lead into what the questions we're asking the employees that we're watching.
Follow-up question.
So, and with that, with the engagement of your employees, which is so important, how involved are they in coming up with the solutions to those opportunities that are identified?
So the question is, how involved are the employees in coming up with solutions to the problems which are identified?
I think they're very involved. I'm very forthcoming with guys because we watch a lot of work. I'm an operator, I come from operations, that's really all I know. I didn't come up through the trades. So if I'm watching a tradesman work, I'm gonna tell him, I don't know how to do your job. I don't. You need to tell me. If I think I see something, you need to tell me what's gonna make it better. Because I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions. Usually my icebreaker is like, hey, I'm the new guy. I'm your new guy. You're going to call off tomorrow, and I've got to cover your job. What do I need to know about this job that's going to keep me safe? And that's usually, and then they'll just, oh yeah, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to watch out for this. So, and that's usually the icebreaker, and that kind of cues me into this guy knows what he's talking about. And you know what I'm saying? So that to me, they're very much involved. Like I said, I'll be 100% honest with them. Like, yeah, I don't know how to do your job. Sean,
Again, it's the onboarding. Been around for 20 years, and then the no name, no blame. Like you said, you can't get in trouble because of an observation. So people accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Very well.
Yes, all the way back here.
How often do you have employees request an observation as part of the process?
Yeah.
How often do we have employees request an observation?
Pretty frequently, actually. Once again, it kind of comes with the ebb and flow of work. If the work's low and you don't have a ton going on. I mean, you'll have your occasional operators. The contractor's usually a little more active than the marathon operators. I mean, you have areas that are highly, like Sean's area. He's got a lot of guys in the pump house that are active in COS. I mean, they do observations. Request observations. There's other parts of the plant that aren't so much, and some are just, for some reason, actively resistant to it. But it happens, I would say, several times a week at the minimum. Yeah.
I think people think we're the fix-it people too. Just like, hey, well, come look at this. You might see something, So, which helps, which is good too, because one thing you don't want to do is deter people if they have a question. And I think that's where a lot of people don't speak up when they see unsafe things, because they spoke up about them before and they got pushed to the wayside. So, yeah.
We had one question over here first. Did we? Yes, I think you were.
Back away like 20 years, but early on, the concern of prevention was like maybe some of the observations might not be strict and safety, and might lead to some other things. How do we get past that, like gripes and complaints and
The gripes and complaints from who? The hourly guys or the management team? Well, so a lot of it is when like one of our guys when they see me coming, everybody in the plant knows who Sean and I are. They know we're hourly guys. I hate to make it an us versus them thing, but we're one of them. So yeah, they might say, oh, here comes circle of safety or whatever. But ultimately, when I say, hey man, you mind if I do an observation? Very rarely have I told. I mean, I joked around earlier and said I've been told no, and I have, but it's pretty rare. Most of the people in the plant are pretty open to at very least entertaining us. They're like, yeah, whatever, you can watch me work, And a lot of the observations end up being, safe. We're a very safe place. Even the safety culture is very, very strong and not just the Detroit refinery, the marathon in general. So it's not that big of a deal for them. I mean, like I said, we get told no. It's usually by people that aren't familiar with our culture, our process, the travelers. like Sean said, you kind of roll up on them in the middle of their job. They're in a very not so polite way till you get lost, you know.
But approach is everything too when it comes to doing observation. So I was a dedicated observer when they were building our new office building, and there was a guy, he was welding. It was hot. It was July. And I remember I said, excuse me. And I remember this guy lifted up his hood. He turned off his torch and he turned around and gave me the dirtiest look. Like. So I said, hey, my name is Sean Moore. I'm with our behavior-based safety process. You mind if I do an observation? He said, yeah, go ahead. So he went on work. I talked to that guy for an hour. Found out he had cancer, my dad had cancer, and the next day when I seen him, I didn't even do an observation that day, but the next day when I came out, he said, hey, what's up, Sean? Like we've been knowing each other for a long time. So approach is everything when you do observation. So it's a welcoming thing too. You know?
So we're gonna sweep here and then come back to you. So yeah.
So it looks like you give your employees a lot of feedback from the data, your bulletins, and your mid-month and your end of the month. So they got a lot to digest. How much do you emphasize percent safe? How much do you rely on the percent safe metric?
So the question is, giving a lot of feedback from the data, which is awesome, how much do you rely on percent safe as that metric for that feedback?
I do try to focus on the percent safe quite a bit, coming from operations and being fresh from like I said earlier, I was literally I'm new to this job, so I was that guy. I was that guy. Like all they care about, all they focus on is what we're doing wrong. Here they come. They're going to tell me what I'm doing wrong. So as coming from that environment, I do try to say, hey, look, yes, this is what we need to improve on, but this is what you guys are doing right. I mean, we do try to focus on what's going well, especially with us. Like it's me talking to my guys and girls, it's like, it's me talking to my own people. So I'm like, hey, you might not hear this from, high up on the mountain that you're doing a great job of this, but I'm going to tell you you're doing a great job because I know what you're doing. Especially for the operators, like I know what job they got to do. I know how hard it can be. So yeah, you are doing a good job.
Great. Yes.
So it's kind of piggybacking from two questions ago. You mentioned saying someone, they say, hey, come on, look at this. Can you identify if this is safe or not? Do you guys utilize your observation process to maybe pinpoint something that maybe you may have missed? Maybe this is an unsafe act or an unsafe area. Do you utilize that observation process to kind of pinpoint and draw attention to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I could ramble off countless observations that led to, a big one was a tote-to-tote transfer that was a common practice in Complex 1. And when Chris Gray, the guy previous to me, he came from Complex 1. He's very familiar with the work. He already knew about that job. So when it came time to do an observation, he went he goes, I'm going to watch these guys, and because they've been trying to get it fixed for a while. It was a relatively dangerous scenario they were putting themselves in. They're lifting a tote up with the forklift, wasn't strapped down, it wasn't, anything. It's just said, hey, this is the way we've always done it. And nobody really ever addressed it. So, I mean, he hard charged that one and got it fixed pretty quick.
I was there when it happened. And I was helping them put this heavy hose on it, and I'll be damned if the plant manager didn't walk up behind it. So I'm making sure I'm like doing things safe because I don't work in that area. Yeah. And he saw it, and we had a conversation around it. And like again, it was like it was one of those uneven rocky roads where literally the hollow was tilted, and you're lifting up this 500-gallon tote. And next week, cleared it out, put cement back there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a question over here, and then we'll come over to Hugh, and then we'll.
The onboarding process, how much time do you spend with the employee talking about your program and making sure that they understand the process? 30%, 50%, 65%, what is it?
How much time do you all spend in the orientation process talking about the observation program?
So the COS, the observation program, it is volunteer. And I know some places do it different. Some places mandate that their people do observations, whatever. So ours is volunteer. So we put it out there that, hey, I'm going to do a class. So when people come in and they're interested in the class, that is an 8-hour day. It used to be a 2-hour or a 2-day event. Like if you became COS trained, we spent 2 days on it, but they have asked us to condense it. So we actually spend an 8-hour day going over, we do a deep dive on exactly what behavior-based safety is, how it works, the behavioral science behind it, and then we focus heavily on how to do the observations, and how to have that conversation. And we focus on the conversation being the major part of it.
And we get to talk to all the new hires too, as well,
Yeah.
and contractors.
Yeah, so if you get hired in, like we have a new hire class coming in when we fly back, and I'll spend a day with them as well.
We're down for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, we got time for one more question here.
So y'all structure, you keep talking about like your facilitators, steering team, and then observers. Do you have coaches in there for crews or departments?
You have
Yes.
Coaches. Do they have coaches for the crews? Whenever
so-
you do the, yeah.
So we do have coaching. It's usually the more experienced observers. Like Sean. I'm not gonna say me because I'm new still, but like I would have if I know Sean's there, I'll say, hey, I'm gonna be in your area doing observations. Why don't you come out with me? And he will coach me on my observations. So we do have a coaching process that I do want to kind of develop a little more, to kind of get the observations a little bit better quality.
Yeah, that's what I'm just curious. So you don't actually have like coaches established in each crew, in each department?
No.
Every
no.
committee member is a coach.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I lied. We have time for one more question. Yes,
Uh-oh.
sir.
Big dog coming in.
So we were talking about percent safe and positive reinforcement and the like, but you mentioned earlier when you were showing some data that some, as I recall, some in the 40s, high potential at-risk behaviors were found.
Mm-hmm.
And Don, you said that shows us that our program is working.
Mm-hmm.
Expand on that a little bit. Why do you think that is an example of what your program is designed to do?
Well, like I said, there's this, I guess, stigma between the safety department. I'm going to get in trouble, Sean. Don't record this. Turn this off. There's a stigma between the safety department and the hourly. The safety department will roll in with audits. They'll come in and want to do audits, and that will really tense somebody up. They'll either stop what they're doing, like, oh, look at that, it's break time, Where with us, we're watching guys that we know and we work with every day. So they'll do they won't exactly tighten up around us. They're like, yeah, you want to watch me do my thing? I'll do my thing. And then that's when we start noticing the behaviors that they're doing that are at risk. You're like, wait a minute, where's your harness? Where's your face shield? You're about to use an impact gun on a bolt this big. Where's your face shield? I don't need it. I've done it 1,000 times. Well, maybe you better get it. So that observation process, and we don't. So the observation will stop, and we'll address that behavior. But they know, and we know that behavior is not going to lead to me running to somebody and say, oh, so and so was out there doing this, and now somebody official gets involved, and so is now gone because he committed what we consider a life-critical violation. So yes, we might see life-critical violations out there, but we will stop it, address it, and explain to these guys, hey, what you're doing is going to get yourself hurt or killed at some point. I don't care if you've done it 1,000 times. I've been that guy. So I know exactly what you're doing, and you need to stop, and we need to work on why you're doing it. And people are genuinely receptive of that. So next time they see it, and they're like, oh, well, I got to make sure I have my face shield on, So, I don't know. You want to expand on that, Sean?
Yeah, it's almost like a picture. If I tell you that John cut his hand, you're like, okay, well, John cut his hand. So when I was in the safety department, what they actually started doing was showing people some of these injuries. We were having a lot of injuries with hand tools, metabos mainly. And that vision, you can't get that out of your head when they show that picture, when they show that around. It makes you think, okay, this can happen to me, as opposed to me telling you, but I'm showing you. And it makes the person think, like, what is the significant injury that can happen to me? So we had something where hearing protection was one of those things that was always an at-risk behavior. Because in the tank farm, we're not around a lot of reciprocating or rotating equipment and things of that nature, So So, okay, well, how do you get people to like wear hearing protection? Because it's not an immediate action. If you cut your hand, you're gonna cut your hand right now. If you're gonna lose your hearing, it's gonna be over time. So we brought in somebody that the entire plant knew, Pete the painter. Awesome guy. And we did an interview with him, and we had him talk about hearing loss. So he said when he used to be sandblasting in vessels, he said back in the day, no one talked about PPE or hearing protection. They didn't know what that was. So over all that time, he lost his hearing. And I think one time what hit home is when he said that his daughter was crying because she ran to her mom and said, "Dad is yelling at me," but he couldn't understand her. And we put a video with him out there, and it kind of hit home. You know, it's one of those things. We all get up and go to work. If you see someone or your coworker, whether you like that person, I always tell everybody, if you do not like that person, you see them doing something unsafe, think about who they go home to. Somebody loves and cares about that person. So help that person out. Help them out.
All right, that is a great place to end. So help me give these two gentlemen a warm round of applause. Thank you so much.